Hey there, and welcome back to the British Accent Podcast. I'm Emily.
And I'm Nick. Thanks for joining us. Today, we're having a conversation that feels very real for so many people learning English, and honestly, just being human. It's that feeling of, I should have figured this out by now.
Right? Whether it's your English level, your job, your routine, or just life in general. We put so much pressure on ourselves to have clear answers, neat goals, and a perfectly organized future.
But the truth is, most of us are figuring things out as we go. And that's not failure. That's normal. That's life.
Absolutely. And especially when it comes to learning English, you don't need to have a perfect plan. You don't need to study 3 hours a day, or know exactly which method works best for you. It's okay if some days you're just exploring. Some days you try and it clicks. Other days, not so much.
Yeah, and I think that's the key, being okay with a bit of messiness. A bit of uncertainty. You can still move forward even when things aren't crystal clear. Sometimes the progress happens while you're in the middle of the fog.
You might think, I should be fluent by now, or other people are doing better than me. But everyone's timeline is different. What matters more is that you're still open to learning, still showing up, even if it's just 5 minutes a day, even if it's not perfect.
Exactly. Progress doesn't always look like a straight line. Sometimes it looks like pausing, rethinking, starting again. And that's not something to be ashamed of. That's growth in disguise.
So if you're listening to this right now, and you feel behind, or uncertain, or like you haven't figured everything out yet, we just want you to know, that's perfectly okay. You're not broken. You're not lazy. You're just human.
And you're doing better than you think.
One thing we've both noticed from talking with learners around the world is how often people underestimate what they are doing. Someone will say, I'm not really learning right now, but then they describe how they watch Netflix with English subtitles, or they listen to podcasts on the bus, or they chat in English at work. And we're like, wait, that is learning.
Yeah, it's this idea that if it doesn't look like a textbook and a desk and hours of silent study, then it doesn't count. But real learning happens in real life, and it doesn't have to be formal or structured to matter. English can be part of your living, not just part of your studying.
It's also important to remember that having questions, doubts, or even a bit of confusion is a sign that you care. You're thinking. You're reflecting. That means your brain is engaged, even if you don't feel like you have it all under control. Honestly, no one really does.
Totally. And sometimes, taking a step back and allowing space, to not have a plan, to not rush, can lead you to the best breakthroughs. You might notice a phrase that finally makes sense, or a grammar point that suddenly feels natural, just because you gave yourself room to breathe.
And when you let go of the pressure to have everything figured out, you also open yourself up to enjoying the journey a bit more. Maybe you laugh at a funny mistake instead of feeling embarrassed. Maybe you're curious instead of frustrated. That shift changes everything.
That's what keeps English learning sustainable. Not perfection. Not pressure. But peace. Peace with where you are today, even if it's not where you hoped you'd be. Because that space, that calm, is where learning can actually grow.
And sometimes, that space gives you the courage to try things you would have avoided before. Like starting a conversation, even if you stumble. Or writing a short journal entry in English, even if it's not perfect. When you're not focused on having everything figured out, you become more willing to explore.
Exactly. And ironically, that's when your growth speeds up, when you're not obsessing over it. When you're not checking your progress every second. You're just doing your best, day by day. And somehow, you look back and realize how far you've actually come.
It's like planting a seed. You don't dig it up every hour to see if it's growing. You water it, you trust the process, and one day, there it is. A little sprout of confidence, a bloom of understanding. Progress doesn't always announce itself with fireworks.
Yeah, sometimes it just whispers, "You handled that conversation better," or "You didn't need subtitles this time." Tiny signals that you're evolving, even without a grand plan or perfect routine.
So if you're in a season where things feel unclear, messy, or slow, that's okay. You're not behind. You're not failing. You're simply in motion, even if that motion feels invisible right now.
And learning a language is one of the most human things you can do. It's not about having everything solved, it's about connecting, expressing, understanding. And those things grow with time, patience, and a little faith in yourself.
So maybe today, your English practice looks like listening to your favorite podcast on the way to work. Maybe it's repeating one phrase you heard in a movie. Maybe it's just noticing that you understood a sentence without translating it in your head. That's still progress.
Yeah, and honestly, that kind of practice is more powerful than you think. It's not flashy, it doesn't always feel impressive, but it's real. It's the kind of practice that builds a foundation that lasts. A foundation that doesn't crack when life gets busy or overwhelming.
And here's something important. When you accept that you don't need to have it all figured out, you start giving yourself permission to show up imperfectly. To speak with mistakes. To forget vocabulary sometimes. To be human.
Because the people who grow the most aren't the ones who do everything perfectly from the start. They are the ones who keep showing up, especially when things are unclear. They are the ones who say, "I don't know everything, but I'm still here. I'm still trying."
That kind of energy, humble, consistent, forgiving, is what leads to long-term success. Not just in English, but in everything. And it's often the people who allow themselves to be beginners, to feel uncertain, who become the most fluent, the most expressive, the most resilient.
So don't wait until your life feels organized, or your confidence feels full, or your schedule feels perfect. Because that moment may never come. But you're here now. And that's enough.
And when you really think about it, most of the people you admire, whether they speak English fluently or seem confident in their skills, didn't start out with a clear plan or perfect conditions. They simply began. Often without knowing where it would lead, often while juggling work, family, emotions, fears. But they started. They practiced a little here, a little there. They kept going.
Exactly. And a lot of times, that messy progress, that's what makes the journey meaningful. You don't remember every perfect study session. But you do remember the time you practiced while doing laundry, or whispered new words to yourself while putting your child to sleep. Those small, real-life moments stick with you. They become part of your story.
And your story doesn't need to look like anyone else's. Maybe your English learning happens in between shifts at work. Maybe it's 10 minutes a week. Maybe you repeat the same phrase 10 times, because that's all your brain has room for today. That still matters. It still adds up.
We get caught in the trap of thinking learning has to look intense, structured, or Instagram-worthy to be valid. But language is a living thing. It grows with you, through the quiet moments, the ordinary routines, even the emotional chaos. Especially the emotional chaos.
There's something powerful about using English not just as a skill to master, but as a way to connect, to your goals, to your identity, to the world around you. You're not just learning vocabulary and grammar. You're learning how to express who you are in a new way. And that's a big deal.
Right, and sometimes, that expression doesn't come out perfectly. Maybe you pause, maybe you forget a word, maybe your accent feels heavy that day. But every time you try, you're doing something brave. You're choosing to speak, even when it's easier to stay silent. That effort matters more than perfection ever will.
And think about how many times you've already done this. Said something in English even when your heart was racing, listened even when your mind was tired, showed up to learn even when you had every excuse not to. That's strength. That's consistency. That's growth in action, even when it feels slow or invisible.
You don't need to wait for the perfect version of yourself to appear before you start using English. The version of you right now, tired, busy, unsure, is enough. You're already showing up, and that's what builds your future confidence, not some imagined flawless routine or magic moment of clarity.
And honestly, the English that comes out of your mouth in the middle of a messy life. That's probably the most real, the most authentic English you'll ever speak. Because it's honest. It's raw. It's yours.
Yeah, and those are the kinds of moments that actually prepare you for real conversations. Not the ones where everything is calm and quiet and perfect, but the ones where life is happening all around you. Kids are yelling, your phone is buzzing, your mind is spinning, and you still manage to form a sentence. That's powerful.
Exactly. And that kind of practice, that kind of resilience, builds not only your English, but your confidence in handling life, too. Because every time you speak when you're tired, or listen when you're distracted, or write when you feel uninspired, you're not just improving your language skills. You're proving to yourself that you can keep going, no matter what the day throws at you.
And honestly, I think that's the most inspiring part of being a learner, not when things are easy, but when things are tough and you keep trying anyway. That's when you really grow. Not just as an English speaker, but as a person.
And even if it's just 10 minutes while you're doing the dishes or 5 minutes before bed, it still counts. Don't underestimate those little bits of effort. They build up. They create momentum. They create progress, even when it's quiet, even when it's slow.
Yeah, it's not about huge leaps, it's about showing up again and again, even in small ways. That's what turns learning into a part of who you are, not just something you do when everything is perfect.
So if you're listening to this and thinking, my life is too chaotic, I'm not consistent, I'll never be fluent, pause. Breathe. Look at what you're already doing. Look at how far you've come just by not giving up. You're doing more than you think.
Yeah, and the fact that you're listening to this podcast, maybe while walking to work, folding laundry, or just taking a quick break, that's already part of your learning journey. That's already proof that you care, that you're making space for English even when life feels overwhelming.
And the beauty of it is, those small, almost invisible actions are usually the ones that build the strongest habits. You're wiring your brain to stay connected to the language, not just in study mode, but in life mode. English becomes not just a subject, it becomes a rhythm that runs through your day.
That's such a powerful shift, when learning English stops being something you force and starts being something you carry with you. Like background music. Like a quiet voice in your head helping you name what you see, express what you feel, or simply stay curious about the world around you.
Exactly. And when you let yourself live your real life, imperfect, busy, emotional, and still keep English close by in gentle ways, it becomes something that belongs to you. Not something you're chasing, but something you're already holding.
And that's why we say, you don't need more pressure. You don't need more guilt. What you need is more grace. More moments where you say, today was messy, but I still learned something. I still showed up in my own way.
Absolutely, Nick. Remember, learning English isn't about perfection or pressure, it's about progress, no matter how small. So be kind to yourself, celebrate those little wins, and keep inviting English into your life in ways that feel natural and manageable.
Well said, Emily. Thanks for joining us today on the British Accent Podcast. Take care of yourself, keep practicing in your own way, and we'll catch you next time.
Cheers, everyone.